The topic of this discussion is an aspect of the Sati Sutta. Would it be a bad idea to listen first to the talk by the name The Dynamics of Mental Dharma that were uploaded on the same channel? Doesn't matter if you do not understand the whole thing, but if you listen to it first, you might get a somewhat deeper picture. Agni I use here in the sense of that which is beyond. The awareness also being situated in the beyond. Agni is also the awareness. And there is the notion of the zero space and space itself. Zero space reflects space, a kind of zero spaceified perception of space exists in zero space. And that could also be referred to by the word Agni for the purpose of discussion here, because the awareness of that which is beyond exists together with the dimensional scan sense, that is the spatial scan sense, within the zero space awareness. When the awareness is within the zero space, that is zeroth order zero. So Swaha and Agni are associated in mythology. So Swaha, in a sense, is symbolically the world geometry. And Agni is the zero geometry view, the reflected space within zero, space reflected into zero, together with the beyond. The beyond, I think, that which is beyond the appeared world. The word Swaha, which is often used at the end of a mantra and so forth, can be understood profoundly in different senses. And I would urge you to read the Wikipedia article on the word Swaha. This particular phrase appears in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Parimukham Satim Uttapetva. Having established Upatthapetva, Parimukham Satim Upatthapetva. So it can be understood in different ways, and there is no easy way to understand it here. So Parimukham can mean facing the Mukham, or at the surface, at the Mukham. Satim is related to the word Sati, which here in the context of the sutra also suggests the meaning observation. Abetva is possibly Sanskrit Upastha or something like that, having established. Among the aspects that are observed while the breath is observed is the formation of the body. The word used is Kaya Shanti. The formation of the body, the geometrical formation of the form of the body, which occurs in the world scan, done in patterns of the spatial senses codified in the DNA. And thus the breath being the perception of this geometric scan, the breath is also what forms the body. From the previous lecture, which I pointed out at the second slide in this talk, remember that M The symbolism of N is analogous to the caduceus structure in space. I had described that in the previous lecture. Those orbs or circles of the caduceus can be thought of as N space getting structured, starting from the zero space at the base. And the U symbolism in Mukha can be thought of as its founding in the profounder. The spatial transformation is Ka. Ka is the sound for ether as well in Sanskrit. I have the sense that when it gets into the zero thought or zero space reflected view, Ka sense is more Ga sense, rooted in the God principle, so to speak. So the ether movement gets rooted in the God principle, and that is the rooting role of Agni. Agni is associated, again, with Ga symbolism. Agni is again associated with the zero thought, zero, in the view that I have, that I am discussing. Ancient books on the science of designing sculptures, the arms, the limbs of the deity are associated with the word mukha. So is the face, the head, uh, which again suggests the idea of expression, that which expresses forth from the zero thought or zero along higher order zeros. So it is upon that expression that this observation principle is established. So today morning, when I was thinking about the Parimukha phrase, I falsely remembered it as Pratimukha. Pratimukha means Pari has the sense on the surface. Prati has the sense against. So standing against the space formation, which again is a very powerful meditative exercise. A powerful meditative exercise. The awareness is established facing the 0 point, and that which appears in formation is denied. And another approach is to, because the 0 point is also associated with the tip of the nose, is to establish the awareness there and absorb the body perception there, including the sense of directionality. So the directional processes become within the Agni process, what was perceived as outward direction processes, and thus processes of the body, maintained over these 6 or 7 dimensional spaces, 6 dimensional spaces, and the 7th dimension it is founded, becomes reflected into a more dense, compressed, mercury-like view within the zero, from which it is not possible to be disrupted. So they talk a lot about this tradition versus that tradition. A particular kind of tradition is about adoration of God or a form of God, and another tradition, or adoration for deity. Another tradition is about meditation and so forth. So this is from Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which is a core text of the Shaivite school. The sakara means with form, sadhanas, meditations or practices, are described for those people of deluded intellect who are prey to distracted thought patterns or are inclined towards the performance of action and ostentatious rituals to traverse the path of meditation. To traverse the path of meditation. In reality, the essence of Bhairava is not the 9 forms, nor the garland of letters, nor the 3 flows, not even the 3 powers of Shakti. So when I was thinking about Pratimukha, I had happened to play the Shivatandava Stotra. It was playing on my laptop loop. So the form of the god Shiva as the deity of destruction uh, is what is described. So that can be thought of as a pratimukha. So on one side, the awareness in a non-dual sense is in a kind of adorative perception of the form of destruction, of the force of destruction manifesting, of the god of destruction. It is both form and it is destruction. So, as for the Shiva school scripture, Vijnana Bhagavatantra, it is for those of deluded intellect or of flimsy intellect to traverse the path that the form aspects of meditation exist, sankara sadhanas. So at the same time that the form appears, that is the sakara aspect appears, one vibes with it in an adorative sense. At the same time, and it's also non-dual. There is not so much of an external sense. Uh, in fact, at a stage there is absolutely no external sense. And at the same time, this particular form that appears, which is of the god of destruction, also gets denied into the shunyata, 0 point, as if death itself is, as if the ultimate death itself is quote unquote denied. This is not denial in the sense of the so-called atheistic or any other kind of sense, not even in a disrespectful sense, because there is nothing outward that was being understood, but it is that the form generation and its disappearance having a reality in itself that gets denied. While in the Pratimukha adoration process, and one is in fact following the directions of the God Himself, as found in this scripture, which is a very prominent scripture, one of the most prominent scriptures of the school. It says it is for those of deluded intellect that the adoration of form is. But of course, we all have the deluded intellect aspect. So I was unconsciously uh, led by myself into a process in which the meditation and the adoration happens simultaneously. The deluded part of the intellect is served in one way, leading into the meditation, into the shunyata aspect. Shunyata is to be understood as the mathematical structure and the foundation of reality, the mathematical structure that gets interpreted as physical form. That is why the Heart Sutra says Shunyata and form are not to be understood as different. Through that, through the zero thought of zero of the Shunyata structure, it is possible to view the profound, the expanding out into the higher spheres of the awareness in an outward sense and not in the within the zero thought or zero reflected sense. The outward expanding is what is annihilated within the awareness processes. The outward expanding form aspect is so-called denied, one might say, or the directional aspects of it are just thought of as directional expansions. Perhaps in the Vedic iti, not this iti has also the sense of directionality. It is again not done in the sense of any atheistic sense, but it leads to the original form, the true you, beyond the outward mathematical perception law, outward the sense, outward outward traveling mathematical vector set generated perception alone, which are the loop outward loop of perceptions, or the Akara perceptions, Sankara perceptions in the usual sense of the word. Not that the profounder doesn't have form of perceptions, though it's different from the outward sense. So here the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra scripture says his Bhairavas, that is Shivas. Shiva is the ultimate God, that is the ultimate one God. So the ultimate one God is referred to with different terms, is what the Rig Veda says, depending upon the sense of expression. The Bhagavad Gita describes the ultimate God as Bahuda Vishuddha Mukham, meaning manifold facing the universe. Vishuddha Mukham, manifold faces appearing into the universe. Face is a translation for the word mukha that I used. In the meditative sense, the mukha becomes also the tip of the nose at a stage when the focus there will unveil the mercury light or silver light absolute through the zero space, and then quantum form generation and form can be absorbed into that. These things have been told about the form of Bhairava, like the tales used to frighten children, to induce people of immature intellect to follow the spiritual path, just as the mother entices her child with sweets. This is Shiva, the god Shiva himself saying. Bhairava as perhaps here an expression of the ultimate as a sound used to refer to the ultimate as. So I have been using the symbolism of circles within circles or spheres within spheres to describe the structure of the universe down to the zero thought of zero. Here, interestingly, this ancient writing, this particular scripture says in this phrase, like the light, different colored circles on the peacock's feathers, one should meditate on the five words. Then, by following them to the end, which becomes the principal word, enter the heart. The zero thought is zero is possibly what is referred to here as the principal word. The heart here does not necessarily refer to the human heart, but the heart of the zero thought is zero, or the heart of the Shunyata structure, which of course the zeros being uh, strung together exists at the center of every chakra perception. But that perception has to be amplified by allowing the awareness to move through those spaces, to thunder through those spaces, which is possibly um, related to what the verse above says. Then, having filled the tip of Murtha and crossed the bridge between the eyebrows, the mind rises above all dichotomizing thought patterns and presence revealed. There must have been the movement through the zero spaces or the chakras mentioned there, zero spaces of the chakras. This is again because the awareness is the Agni perception is manifest at all those points. It is like the thunder moving through in possible perception. That perception is trained by the awareness. The awareness is given that perception in the sadhana training, the process. Which is nothing but observation. There's no fancy exercises or anything needed. It's nothing but the observation having gained access to it, and the observation of the structuring done repeatedly. There are traditions that speak of the idea of the awareness getting established on the surface of the void, or the blissful void itself, the void upon which all phenomenon passes. And because the blissful underlying, that which is beyond, can be felt from that void space, it is described as blissful. Sometimes they use phrases such as clear water underneath which the moon is visible, underneath which the reflection of the moon is visible, and so forth. So that is another idea of having the awareness established, parimukha, parimukha upastapitya, if that is the Sanskrit version of the Pali word, underneath, established underneath the uh, surface of the zero. That becomes the parimukha, mukha as the emergent space of phenomenon, and pari as the surface. In the Bahya Sutta, there is phrasing which is, in my view, similar to when the monk is taught by the Buddha, saying when you understand that the scene is just the scene, the herd is just the herd, and so on and so on, you will not abide there, and not abiding there, and so forth. You could read it. But again, there appears the phrase, neither here nor there. So that is being established at the zero surface boundary of phenomenon, from where the individual has not exited into nirvana, yet is by staying there gaining the ability to be in phenomenon without being affected by phenomenon, because it is at the blissful void of phenomenon in terms of awareness. That is the space over which phenomenon seems to pass over. I wouldn't use the word clouds, but that is a terminology that has been used, like clouds passing over without affecting anything. Vega is a terminology found in ancient traditions referring to intense movement. Uh, the Yoga Sutras speak of establishing oneself, and the idea of establishing is spoken of in the Vyasa Bhashya as referring to the awareness entering the zero space, being established in the zero thought of zero, the Paramanu, in the terminology of Yoga Sutras. The Paramanu can be translated in modern terminology to say the profoundest or the deepest atom, but that word is that word. It has to be understood not in the framework of modern science alone. By modern science meaning, but in the framework of the errors of modern science, it cannot be wholly understood. It has to be understood in a framework of pure reason and pure mathematical physics, which today's physics is far from at this stage. So these potentialities exist on this zero, somehow like threatening to throw the awareness into those vectorial scans. Because different orders of transformation are present, these are like intense transformations as far as the awareness is concerned, when the awareness is just accustomed to uh, simple directional scans. So the nature of these transformations need to be understood by having the awareness abide in them, the samyama process, uh, or the vipassana samadhi process, um, which are analogous. So once this phenomenon is understood, including in what underlying sense in the unappeared it takes on, and even perhaps dynamics there,
when the awareness is accustomed to that, it is able to be unaffected by the Vegas of world phenomena. The Yoga Sutra speaks of being established in Tivra Vega. Tivra Vega means intense movement, intense Vega. Vega can mean it is the root of vector vehicle uh, to weigh and so forth. It means movement in a more usual sense, but Vega is Vega. It is that movement experience on the zero here that is referred to by the word Vega. So I write here, the underlying principle of the animation of those forces and patterns need to be understood in the unappeared beyond, and thus the awareness granted the ability to wield them and abide in them unfazed. Now, another thing is different orders of zeros have different forms of spatial animation, different rates of change of space, spatial sense, and different volumetric sense of change of spatial sense, different rates of change as it gets compressed to another dimensional view, which is why the nuclear forces tend to be strong. And on the zeroth order zero surface, there presumably is a superpositioning of all that because the information and the potentialities are preserved there. For the potentialities of a higher order zero has finally evolved from this particular zeroth order zero, that is the emergent space. So all those moments and awareness animators, the potential senses that the awareness perceives in higher order zeros, all those exist already on the zeroth order zero and in a kind of superposition. So that needs to be understood. By understanding, one should proceed to a level of understanding which involves what are the binding operators there, the perception of those operators, the perception that emerges from the bind, and what is the operator sense that throws the awareness out, an understanding of the operator itself, the way it animates perception, way it tends to generate space, the way awareness binds with that transformation, the way the awareness binds with space or the spin transformations of different orders, the way it is existing compressed on the zeroth order zero surface, and so forth. The operators themselves have to be understood in the underlying beyond. So do the different senses of the so-called infinite directions. What is the underlying beyond of those senses? The Yoga Sutras also speak of being established in uh, slow movement and medium movement, mridu and madhyama. I guess that those are the Sanskrit words, I guess. I'd have to refer. Gentle and medium, and the intense Vega transformations. By establishing means being established in the zero. The awareness also needs to understand the way of being established on the zero boundary. Because a set of operators are boundary operators, like the superpositioning operator. It's a boundary operator. While other operators are axial operators, passing through the zero space. So here in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, it says when Shakti in the form of Vayu or pranic air is still and does not move swiftly in a specific direction, that develops in the middle through the state of Nirvikalpa, the form of Bhairava. That is when the unappeared form of Bhairava appears according to the Shaivite schools. A prominent text of the Shaivite school being Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Nirvikalpa has also the sense without any outward imagination sense. Outward vectorial scans are involved in the outward imagination faculty at play. The name of the treatise of Nagarjuna is Madhyama Karika, meaning the form at the center. So here it says that develops in the middle, Madhyama, the sound middle and Madhyama are related. Through the state of Nirvikalpa, the form of Bhairava. Bhairava is the term for the ultimate god in ancient terminology of this particular tradition, which is the Vijnana Bhairava tradition of the Shaivites. This is said to have been taught by the god Shiva. The Ekottara Agama 17.1, a breathing technique is taught by the Buddha, in which the awareness is kept at the tip of the nose and one observes the breath. You could read the text yourself. I haven't read the original. I have read the English translation. The English translation says at the tip of the nose, which makes sense in the theory that we have been discussing and also in terms of what were discussed in the previous slide. This is an excerpt from a short document that I wrote by the name The Jedi Training Guide. So this is the document from where I took that portion. You could type in this link to get the Jedi Training Guide from the Internet Archive.